In 2015, a man in Shelton, Washington opened a storage unit and found a faded red race car with the name Unser still visible on the bodywork. It was the first car a four-time Indianapolis 500 champion ever drove at the Brickyard. And nobody knows how it traveled 2,300 miles from Indianapolis to the Pacific Northwest. Nobody ever will. That's not even the craziest story on this list. From a Le Mans Ferrari abandoned in a hurricane to a championship-winning IndyCar literally rescued from a trash bin, racing history has a habit of disappearing into garages, barns, and forgotten corners of the world, only to resurface decades later with stories that sound completely made up. These are 8 famous racing cars that vanished, and the stories of how they came back. Every car on this list raced at the highest levels of motorsport, and every one of them vanished for years, sometimes decades, before coming back in ways that would sound ridiculous if they weren't documented. So let's get into it, starting with a piece of pure American muscle rotting under an Alabama carport. Number 8. The 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona. In 1969, Dodge built exactly 503 Charger Daytonas with one goal in mind: win NASCAR races. That massive rear wing and that pointed nose cone were not for show. They were aerodynamic weapons designed to break 200 miles per hour on the superspeedways, and they did exactly that. The Charger Daytona became the first NASCAR car to officially break the 200-mile-per-hour barrier, which scared NASCAR so badly they eventually banned the winged cars entirely. Now, 503 cars isn't a lot, and roughly 385 are believed to survive today. So, when Charlie Lyons, who runs a Chrysler-focused restoration shop in Alabama, found one sitting under an open carport in Glenwood, Alabama, he knew exactly what he was looking at. The car had been parked there since 1974. Over 40 years. A local judge had bought it new for his wife in 1969, and a few years later, an 18-year-old kid purchased it for $1,800, painted flames on the fenders, and drove it to spring break in Panama City, Florida. When he got back, somebody dented the nose cone. He parked it, planning to fix it later. He never did. When Lyons found it, there was moss growing on the rear wing, spiders nesting under the hood, and a cow eating hay right next to it. The paint was peeling. The interior was destroyed, but it was all there. Numbers matching 440, Magnum V8, 3-speed TorqueFlite automatic, and just 20,553 miles on the odometer. Lyons reportedly paid a shoebox full of folded money and hauled it out. It sold at Meckham Kissimmee in January 2016 for around $90,000. Which sounds like a lot until you realize that Hemi-powered Daytonas now sell for over $1 million. This is where the story takes a turn nobody expected. Number 7. The Mazda 254 Le Mans car. If you think barn finds are strictly an American thing, this next car proves otherwise. In 1982, Mazda brought 2 wild-looking race cars to the 24 Hours of Le Mans. They were called the 254i, and they looked like a first-generation RX-7 that had been stretched, widened, and given a rear wing tall enough to hang laundry on. Under the flared bodywork sat a screaming 13B rotary engine producing around 300 horsepower in a car that weighed barely over 2,000 pounds. Car number 82, driven by Yojiro Terada and 2 co-drivers, finished 14th overall and became the first Mazda ever to complete Le Mans. The sister car, number 83, ran as high as 8th before retiring with mechanical problems. Both cars went back to Japan and raced domestically for a couple more years. Car 82, the one that actually finished Le Mans, was destroyed in a crash at Fuji Speedway. Car 83 ran its last race in 1984 and then simply disappeared. Mazda's own headquarters had no idea where it was. The assumption was that it had been scrapped. 35 years later, in late 2018, the car surfaced in Okayama Prefecture, one of the more remote areas of western Japan. The discovery spread through the tight-knit rotary enthusiast community, and 2 legendary figures raced to find it. Isami Amamiya of Rei Amamiya, one of the most famous rotary tuning houses in the world, and Masahito Ito of Powercraft, a well-known composite specialist. When they found the car, it had been repainted plain white. But underneath that white paint, layers of pink and black and gold livery confirmed its identity. Tachimoto-san, the original Mazda speed mechanic who built the car in 1982, examined the brakes and rear suspension, and confirmed it was the number 83 Le Mans car. And here's the detail that everyone missed at the time. Sitting right next to it in the same building was a second lost race car, an IMSA spec RX-7 racer that nobody knew was missing either. Amamiya took the IMSA car. Ito took the Le Mans car and spent years restoring it to exact 1982 Le Mans specification. It is now the only surviving Group 5 Mazda on the planet. Number 6. Al Unser's first Indianapolis car. This one has a mystery at its center that will probably never be solved. In 1965, a young driver named Al Unser showed up at Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the first time. He was part of a legendary rookie class that included Mario Andretti, Gordon Johncock, and Joe Leonard. The car Unser drove for his rookie test was a Pete Wiseman chassis fitted with a Maserati 5.8 engine, entered by California construction magnate Frank Arciero. It was the first asphalt Indy car Unser ever drove. He passed his rookie test in it, but the car could only manage about 151 miles per hour, which wasn't competitive. When they tried adding nitro fuel to squeeze out more speed, it blew the engine. At the last minute, A.J. Foyt offered Unser a ride in his backup car, and Unser qualified 32nd and finished 9th. A 4-time championship career started right there in that moment. The Arciero car, though, seemingly walked out of Indianapolis Motor Speedway and vanished. How a race car travels 2,300 miles from Indiana to a storage unit in Shelton, Washington, the westernmost city on Puget Sound, is a question nobody can answer. The identity of whoever transported it is unknown. The reason it ended up in the Pacific Northwest is unknown. IMS historian Donald Davidson confirmed the car's entry records but acknowledged the mystery of its departure. Vintage car builder Matthew Whitmere found it through an online advertisement for a vintage Indy car. The faded red and white paint still bore the names Arciero and Unser. He sold it to Ray Evernham, the NASCAR Hall of Fame crew chief, who brought it to North Carolina for restoration. Today it's owned by Scott Borchetta, founder of Big Machine Label Group, fully restored and running. Borchetta put it simply, "To know that I have the first car Al ever drove at Indy, that means something to me." Number 5. The 1961 Corvette Gulf Oil race car. In the early 1960s, General Motors had an official corporate ban on racing. No factory involvement, period. But Zora Arkus Duntov, the legendary chief engineer of the Corvette, decided that was a suggestion, not a rule. He created what he called the Sebring Racing Package, a collection of serious competition parts that he disguised under innocent-sounding regular production option codes and smuggled past GM's front office. One of the cars built with that package was ordered new by Don Yenko for Grady Davis, the vice president of Gulf Oil. It looked like a street Corvette. It was anything but. Don Yenko and Dr. Dick Thompson, known in racing circles as the Flying Dentist, campaigned this car to the 1961 SCCA-B Production National Championship. They won 11 races that season alone. Thompson took the 1962 championship too. For 2 years, this Corvette was the car to beat in American sports car racing, all while GM officially had nothing to do with motorsport. After 1963, somebody detuned the car, converted it back to street specifications, repainted it twice, and sold it to a civilian owner who had no idea what he had in his garage. The racing history disappeared with the paint. For 27 years, nobody knew where it was. In 1990, photographer and author Richard Prince identified the car and traced its lineage back through the VIN records. The Corvette that Duntov built in secret, that Yenko raced to a national championship, that Gulf Oil bankrolled under the table, was still alive. This decision seemed small at the time. It wasn't. That identification kicked off a full restoration to 1961 Sebring racing configuration. The car won the first ever NCRS American Heritage Award, was inducted into the Corvette Hall of Fame, and now sits in the National Corvette Museum in Bowling Green, Kentucky. A car that GM pretended didn't exist is now one of the most celebrated Corvettes ever built. Number 4. The Shelby Daytona Cobra CSX 2287. This is the one. If there's a single car on this list that deserves its own documentary, this is it. CSX 2287 is the original Shelby Daytona Cobra Coupe, the very first one. Designed by a young Pete Brock, fabricated by John Olson, and developed alongside Ken Miles at Shelby American Shop in Venice, California. It is the only Daytona coupe built entirely in the United States. The other 5 had bodies made in Italy. This one was hammered into shape by hand using wooden bucks at California Metal Shaping, with Miles literally sitting in the cockpit so Brock could sculpt the proportions around him. At its debut race, the Daytona Continental in February 1964, the car caught fire in the pits. Carroll Shelby ordered the already full gas tank topped off during a pit stop, fuel overflowed onto the scorching hot brakes and differential, and the rear of the car erupted in flames. Mechanic John Olson suffered first and second-degree burns. The crew repaired the car, and it went on to race at Sebring, Le Mans, Spa, Goodwood, and Reims. It won its GT class at Sebring. Officials disqualified it at Le Mans for an illegal push start. Then in November 1965, something extraordinary happened at the Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah. Goodyear needed a car to hold their spot on the salt while Craig Breedlove's jet car waited for conditions. They called Shelby. Someone drove the Daytona Coupe 700 miles through the night to Utah with almost no preparation. Over 4 days, Craig Breedlove and Bobby Tetreault set 23 national and international speed records, covering 1,931 miles around Bonneville's 12-mile loop at an average of 150 miles per hour, with a top speed near 188. Some of those records had stood since the 1930s. Breedlove had never driven a 4-speed manual before. After that, Shelby American sold the car for about $4,000. A slot car entrepreneur named Jim Russell bought it, then sold it to Phil Spector. Yes, that Phil Spector, the infamous record producer. Spector drove CSX 2287 on the streets of Los Angeles, installed carpeting and a full exhaust, and painted outrageous lies on the doors with house paint. Winner 33 Grand Prix. Land speed record 227 miles per hour. 427 cubic inch engine. None of it was true. The car appeared in an episode of the Monkees television show in 1968. After racking up so many speeding tickets that his lawyer told him to get rid of it, Spector sold the car to his bodyguard, George Brand, for $1,000. Brand and his daughter Donna O'Hara kept the car in a lockup in La Habra, California. Donna paid the storage bill every single month and refused to let anyone near it. She turned away Carroll Shelby when he came to her door. For 30 years, the prototype that beat Ferrari at Sebring and set records at Bonneville was hidden in a California storage locker, and the automotive world had no idea if it still existed. In 2001, O'Hara finally agreed to sell it to Dr. Frederick Simeone, a retired neurosurgeon, for approximately $4 million. Legal battles erupted immediately. Phil Spector, O'Hara's parents, her ex-husband, and several others all claimed ownership. Courts ruled the sale to Simeone was valid. Today, CSX 2287 sits in the Simeone Foundation Automotive Museum in Philadelphia. It still wears its original paint. The tires from Bonneville are still on the wheels, and Phil Spector's house paint is still on the doors. It was the first car placed on the National Historic Vehicle Register. Jay Leno visited specifically to drive it. Its estimated value is somewhere north of $15 million. If you're finding this useful, hit subscribe. I cover forgotten automotive history every week, and the next video is going to be just as wild as this one. Now, let's talk about what happens when a hurricane exposes a secret Ferrari collection. Number 3. The Ferrari 512 BB Competizione and 20 Ferraris lost to time. Walter Medlin was a reclusive real estate developer in Kissimmee, Florida. People in Osceola County called him the Howard Hughes of the area. Starting in the 1970s, when vintage Ferraris were just used Italian sports cars nobody wanted, Medlin quietly assembled what became the third largest Ferrari collection in the world. He bought them cheap, stored them in a metal barn on his lakefront property on West Lake Tohope Caliga, and largely forgot about them. The crown jewel was a 1978 Ferrari 512 BB Competizione, chassis 24131, one of only 3 factory-prepared examples built for the 24 Hours of Le Mans that year. Its flat 12 engine was tuned to 460 horsepower. It raced under Luigi Cinetti's legendary North American Racing Team banner as car number 87, climbing as high as 11th overall and second in class before the gearbox gave out after 19 hours. Medlin acquired it in 1981 and parked it alongside the others. By 1990 or so, the entire collection had been sitting untouched for years. Medlin's IRS battles were legendary. He got into serious trouble with the federal government over unpaid taxes in 1997 and again in 2014 at the age of 71. On August 13, 2004, a Friday the 13th, Hurricane Charlie slammed into Kissimmee as a Category 4 storm with winds over 106 miles per hour. The metal barn on Medlin's property collapsed, exposing roughly 20 Ferraris to the elements. Rather than restore them or sell them, Medlin had the entire collection relocated to a secure warehouse in downtown Speedway, Indiana, directly across from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and there they sat. For almost 20 more years, forgotten again. After Medlin passed away around 2022, R.M. Sotheby's announced the collection. In August 2023, during Monterey Car Week, all 20 Ferraris were auctioned without reserve. The 512 BB Competizione sold for $1.49 million. Still wearing its original 1978 Le Mans livery with the driver's names and Nard insignia intact after more than 4 decades. A 1954 Ferrari 500 Mondial Spider, little more than a fire-damaged, hurricane-battered shell on dollies, sold for $1.875 million. A 1965 275 GTB brought $3.3 million. The collection totaled over $16.5 million. 20 Ferraris, exposed by a hurricane, hidden in a warehouse for 2 decades, and finally sold at auction after the man who owned them was gone. Number 2. The 1966 Ford GT40. If the Medlin collection represents the scale of what can be lost, this next car represents the sheer stubbornness that keeps things hidden. A 1966 Ford GT40 Mark I, chassis P1056, one of only about 31 road-legal GT40s ever produced. The second owner purchased it in 1973, drove it to events at Watkins Glen and Sebring through the early 1980s, but eventually parked it in a cluttered garage alongside an MGTC and a Porsche 930. He told friends, "I'm gonna die with it." And he did. For 43 years, one of the most important Fords ever built sat in that garage collecting dust and mouse droppings. The owner turned down every offer. He refused every inquiry. The car became an open secret among GT40 enthusiasts, a ghost that everyone knew about but nobody could touch. After the owner passed away, Tom Cotter, the host of Haggerty's Barn Find Hunter show, found the car and featured it in a viral episode that lit up the car world. The GT40 still had its original 289 V8, its original drivetrain, and its original World War II-era parachute webbing seat straps. Comparable GT40 road cars have sold for $6.3 to $7.65 million at recent auctions. A race-spec GT40 brought $13.2 million in early 2025. Number 1. The VPJ1 IndyCar. For the final car on this list, we're going to a dumpster. In the winter of 1971, a team called Vels Parnelli Jones Racing hired Maurice Philippi, the designer of the legendary Lotus 72, to build them a new IndyCar. What he created was the VPJ1, a radical open-wheel machine powered by a turbocharged Offenhauser 4-cylinder producing somewhere around 12 to 1300 horsepower. The first version had dihedral wings, mounted at 45-degree angles behind the driver's head, a concept so ahead of its time that modern aerodynamicists still study it. 3 VPJ1 cars were built. At the 1972 Indianapolis 500, they finished 2nd, 3rd, and 8th. Driver Joe Leonard won the 1972 USAC National Championship in chassis number 102, the team's 3rd consecutive title. Then, during a Firestone tire test at Phoenix International Raceway in late 1972, a right front suspension failure sent Leonard's car into the wall, badly mangling the right side. The crew tried to repair it but ran out of time. As co-chief mechanic Johnny Caples later explained, racers are not sentimental people. They just want to get to the next race. So they threw it in a dumpster, a championship-winning IndyCar, in the trash. Sometime in the 1980s, an unnamed mechanic fished the battered tub out in the dead of night and hid it in a garage corner. From there, the car bounced around to any number of places over the years, lost in a fog of informal trades and forgotten storage spots. Nobody with the resources to restore it knew where it was. Nobody who had it knew what it was worth. In 2012, Chuck Jones, an Indiana farm kid turned surgical robot designer turned vintage racing car restorer, found chassis 102 hanging from the rafters of a 30-foot-tall warehouse. He spent 4 months just doing inventory on the parts. He sourced a period-correct Offenhauser engine from Al Unser Sr. himself. Johnny Caples, the original crew chief who had thrown the car away decades earlier, came back to help set it up. Fabricator Alec Greaves patterned new right-side suspension components from the surviving left side. Jones restored it to the radical Mark I configuration with those wild dihedral wings. The first time he drove it, at Indianapolis Motor Speedway in 2017, he nailed the throttle and the car spun the rear tires in all 4 gears. In 2018, VPJ1 chassis 102 won the race car category at the Amelia Island Concours d'Elegance, one of the most prestigious automotive events in the world. It is the only VPJ1 in private hands. The other 3 sit in the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum as part of a collection valued at around $18 million. A championship winner. Thrown in the trash, rescued by a stranger, restored by a dreamer, and now it turns laps again. That's the thing about racing cars. They don't care about being forgotten. They don't rust out of spite or decay out of neglect. They just sit there, waiting, carrying their history in every weld and rivet and scratch, until somebody walks into the right barn, opens the right storage unit, or looks in the right dumpster at exactly the right time. 8 cars, exposed by hurricanes, guarded by recluses, hidden by eccentrics, and rescued from the trash. And every single one of them came back.